Okay, I'm still getting that strange error message, but we're just going to power through. Uh, Sources tell me that the video and the sound is coming through okay, so we're just going to hope it works. Take a breath. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm going to read to you from Secret Engine of the World, which is my most recent book. And I'm going to read the final section of Secret Engine of the World. I'm not going to read the whole, I'm going to read excerpts from it, and I'm going to provide some context for that. If I keep looking here and clicking away error messages, if it looks like I'm distracted, I'm clicking away error messages. So I set the computer up at this kind of odd angle because I wanted you to be able to see Ramana Maharshi, Sri Ramana Maharshi above my head. I'll just check the time so I can keep it under half an hour. Yeah. So Sri Ramana Maharshi, of course, that wasn't even his name. They found him in the basement of a temple in Samadhi, and they gave him that name. Um, and lit flowers and incense around him, and it all started there. Um, when I was 16, 17 at the oldest, 15, 16, 17, right in there, I was at Samuel Weiser's occult bookshop in Lower Manhattan. And I bought a book by an author that I had been familiar with, and a cult writer who had written some good stuff. And I bought this book, and I'm not going to give his name or his the title of the book because I don't want to short him because he's a good writer, but he didn't. In the hundreds of pages of his book, there were these little verses, little excerpts from something that he was quoting all through the book. I didn't, they weren't contextualized for me. I just thought, wow, these things just jumped out at me. And the rest of the book to me was gobbledygook. So I copied out every one of the instances of those verses. And in my notebook, and it was a notebook I carried with me in those years. And it went on with me and was in one of the notebooks that I carried in my satchel on the Greyhound bus when I rode from New York to San Francisco in 1978. And everything I thought was important, I had in a big duffel bag under uh, which I gave over to the bus driver and he put under the bus. And off we went, and it was stolen before we got to Cleveland. So all I had was this satchel. So these, in one of which was just full of notebooks, and in one of those notebooks were these verses that jumped out at me from an otherwise overly intellectual book on the deeper states of consciousness. So I would later find out, soon after coming here, I would find out that they actually were the 40 verses of Ramana Maharshi, which was published in 1950, 3 years before my birth. In 1950, as Truth Revealed. This is Joe and Gwen's copy. And you'll see in here a picture of Joe and Gwen's mother in Mill Valley at their family home. So this was a very important book to them. And the 40 verses is just that. This is just the 40 verses that I copied out of this other book that was to be gobbledygook. And I didn't know who Ramana Maharshi was until I got here. And I asked Joe, after meeting Joe and Gwen on the walk and coming to the lodge and uh, being uh, fortunate enough to visit them in their home, I asked them who this was, this image above me. And Joe talked at length about Ramana Maharshi as he gave beautiful talks, which are transcribed in the great song about Ramana Maharshi. He considered Ramana Maharshi as kind of the inner guru in the sense of guru meaning truth, and kind of a touchstone for him in many ways. And this picture was given to them by two young men who were lovers of Joe and Gwen, as many of us were, Sam Burkholz and Mike Fagan, who started Shambhala Books, Shambhala Bookstore in Berkeley, and then Shambhala Publishers. And Joe helped them early on to curate a series of texts for the what Shambhala Books called their Clear Light series. So one of the books was Sutra of Wei-Ning. Another one of the books was, hope you can see this. Yes, is Spiritual Teachings of Ramana Maharshi. This is the first edition, 1972. So this image of Ramana Maharshi is a replica of an image of Ramana Maharshi that hung in their bookstore. They started out as a bookstore, went into publishing it. That is a copy of one that hung in their bookstore. And it used to hang in Joe and Gwen's front room. And now it hangs here above all everything else. But he's at the same level as Sitting Bull and H.P. Blavatsky in the lodge. He's in the Buddha room. But this is from the early 70s at the latest. It has never faded. It doesn't seem to collect dust. It just is. Somewhere, I remember reading that there were two of the great sages of 20th century, Swami Shivananda. You could get his darshan from seeing his signature. If you've ever seen his signature, you'll understand. And you'd get Ramana's darshan just by looking at his glance in any photos of him carried his darshan. So there's a lot of rich history around Ramana Maharshi and Joe and Gwen and this lodge. And there's this little book, another treasure from Joe and Gwen. They gave this to me in 1978, shortly after I got here, Reflections on Talks of Sri Ramana Maharshi by S.S. Cohen. S.S. Cohen was a member of the Theosophical Society who ended up living at Arunachala, and he was from Baghdad. He ended up at the Wilderness Ashram, at Ramana's ashram, and he wrote several powerful books. This first among them, premier among them, and he was a friend and correspondent of Joe and Gwen Miller's, and they had a very important correspondence for Joe and Gwen and for S.S. Cohen, and you could read about that in the endnotes to A Great Song. And the connection, so with the Ramana Maharshi, Evans Wentz, Dr. W.Y. Evans Wentz, S.S. Cohen, Ramana, Evans Wentz, S.S. Cohen, and Joe and Gwen themselves, along with H.P. Blavatsky, Colonel Olcott, and Annie Besant, they're the most powerful influences in the mystical heritage, really, of the San Francisco Lodge of the Theosophical Society. You'll see HPB. It's right behind me. Yeah. So I tell you this to just give some context. The pathless, all of them were 20th century mystics, 20th century occultists. And Evans Wentz, Joe and Gwen, S.S. Cohen are all members of the Theosophical Society. And Rana McCarthy, of course, Ramana is the personification of the pathless path, but in a way that's been, well, it's in a very specific way, very direct way, and I want to get to that. So, along with the S.S. Cohen book and the book that and Carl Jung. Let's not forget Carl Jung in this heritage, because if you if you look at this book, you'll see a preface by Joe and Gwen Miller and an introduction by Carl Jung. If you read The Great Liberation, you'll read an introduction by Carl Jung. And Evans Wentz, of course, was another personal friend and correspondent of Joe and Gwen's. So these were 20th century mystics and occultists translating for the West the great teachings of the deepest teachings of the East. And the connection with Ramana and the Lodge goes on. One of our members, our member Terence Tracy, came to us from Ireland. He has circumambulated in his young life. He has circumambulated Arunachala twice. So we're locked in with the wilderness ashram in many ways. And the last chapter of Secret Engine of the World is an attempt to, in the many pamphlets that Ramana put out early on I think it's in the pamphlet Self-Inquiry, he was attempting in different ways to help people, not really get their minds around, because it's not really about their minds at all, come into communion with what he was trying to communicate to them. So one of the things he did is he drew a picture. He did a few different things, but he drew a picture. This is the picture that he drew. I'm not going to go into the weeds of everything in it, but this is the picture that he drew depicting the nature of consciousness as a house, as an architecture, if you will, and the contents of the house. And so what I have done, what I felt compelled to do in my own process is to, among the many crazy drawings, if you're familiar with my books, some of you are, some of you are not. You'll see several crazy drawings and diagrams of different truths, dimensions of things that I try to communicate. So I decided that I would try to render my own version of Ramana's house. And in a very real sense, it's a 21st century rendition of Ramana's house. He was a 20th century mystic. This is the 21st century rendition of his. And here it is. I changed, the structure of the house is all the same. I reordered all the elements are numbered in his diagram, and all the elements are numbered in my diagram. I reordered the numbers, but I don't want to go into the weeds of all that. I'll just read you a little bit and show you the picture again at the end. And when all else fails, Ramana's right there above my crown. Green matcha. The section of Secret Engine of the World is entitled The Temple the lamp and the mirror. Gaia is a mistress of disguises. She has a safe deposit box in the central bank of the cosmos. She has stashed many passports under fabricated identities, from Tara to Zeus to Isis to Thor. She has stashed bundles of cash in all of the world's currencies. She has stashed pouches of brilliant diamonds and fat bricks of gold and platinum. This treasure allows her to cross any border and do business in any country. Her true identity is the earth itself. She is the divine intelligence of the planet. All life thriving within the thin sheet of atmosphere she has spun around the globe is hers. We not only live and move and have our being in her, our being itself is hers. We are her at the cellular level. We are strands of her hair, the drops of her blood. We are a very embodiment of her. Every tree, every mountain, every human, every whale, every insect, every mushroom, every cloud, every mongoose, every body of water, every forest, everything. And at every order of magnitude, from microcosm to macrocosm, all of this, hers. Our sentience, the chi that animates us, all of this is literally her. Each atom is a temple of her celebration, each strand of hair, each cell, each leaf, each drop of rain, each blossom, each pool of molten lava, each wasp nest, each coconut, each tortoise, each hunk of amethyst, each heap of yak dung, each glacier, each of the 5 bodies that constitute every single human incarnation. All are temples in which she is celebrated ceaselessly, simply by being fully and truly ourselves. She is the divine intelligence. Within all of this, there is a unique architecture for each class of these seemingly infinite temples. To know ourselves is to know her. To know ourselves, it helps to know the inherent structure of psyche. That's why my inner eye has returned again and again to a diagram drawn by the great 20th century sage Sri Ramana Maharsh. I saw it for the first time in my youth, yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to take you through the diagram and its elements, what the diagram and its elements illustrate in this rendering of my own. But first, 2 caveats. One, remember that as I have already mentioned, we have 5 bodies. This diagram shows the architecture of the temple of the psychological body. Each of the other 4 bodies are themselves also temples, each with its own organic structure, all vastly different. The temple of the energetic body would simply be chi, or prana, the force, flowing through the meridians and the vayus. The meridians are like subterranean rivers of chi that run through the human body. The vayus are like a weather system, storm clouds of chi. The prana moves different directions throughout the human form. The temple of the intuitive body could be depicted as a limitless space of pre-dawn darkness, still deep blue of late night, but with the luminosity of sun light just very subtly beginning to soak through. Within this pre-dawn darkness, mysterious messages would arise, some prescient, some forensic. These would be spoken in one or another voice of the divine, or maybe they would simply arise in written words, spitting up out of the dark depths, assembling and disassembling before your eyes as if inside a magic 8 ball. 2. If you were to envision all five temples, it would be incorrect to lay them out as if they were separate, as if you were a compound of standalone temples in spatial relationship. For example, east, west, north, south. That would be incorrect and misleading. To envision all the five temples, you would have to show them all occupying the same space, different dimensions within one temple of human incarnation. But in this essay, we're only exploring the temple of the psychological body, the mental and emotional body. This diagram is an exploration of psyche only and how the heart and mind, thoughts and emotions are wired. The energetic body, the physical body, the intuitive body, all going into constituting the whole of whatever I refer to as psyche soma. So let's see if we can do this. I'm going to talk about first the inner chamber. That would be here at the top, the inner chamber. The inner chamber is the so-called deep sleep state. But it's not a state. It doesn't come and go. It simply is. Uninterruptedly, it is the essential space within which the deepest dimensions of our being abide. As I have remarked before in words and elsewhere, people often say, oh, I can't meditate. And in that very night, they will lay their head down on a pillow and let go, passing effortlessly through the dreaming and on into deep sleep. Every human has to do this. Every 24-hour cycle, or they will soon start to go mad. No one really teaches you how to sleep. It is a natural function. As Ramana himself said, this deep sleep state is, in a very real sense, samadhi. So yes, every human being is designed to go into samadhi every 24-hour cycle. You can't escape it without losing your mental health. And yet people struggle for years, for decades, for a lifetime, learning to meditate. Dot, dot, dot. Yes, deep sleep as we know it is a subset of samadhi. The middle chamber, the middle chamber, the middle chamber is a so-called dream state. But it too is not a state. The deep sleep, like deep sleep, it is a dimension of our being. It doesn't come and go, it simply is. Uninterruptedly, it is the vital space within our being that processes the worlds of inner and outer phenomena. And the so-called waking state, as we know it, is a subset of the dream state. Indeed, most of what we understand to be our, quote, conscious mind, unquote, is actually dream state. Dot, dot, dot. The inner wall, the inner wall, inner wall, is nescience. Mystery pools here. Nescience veils the primal reality until full embodiment arrives and the inner eyes, yes, plural, open. This inner wall is not solid in any way. It is not impenetrable. It is not meant to be. It is more like a full wineskin, soaked and dripping. It is both transparent and opaque at once. It simply is. It doesn't ever fall away. Dot, dot, dot. The windows and the outer courtyard. The windows. I keep getting this error message. I hope you are not. The, the courtyard and the windows. Courtyard and the windows represent our five senses in interaction with the world of external phenomena, just as there is a deeper mystery to deep sleep, dream state and waking state. There is a deeper mystery to this interaction between the five senses and the world of external phenomena. In our default everyday somnambulistic state, we feel as if the senses interacting with the stimuli of the external world fill with information from the outside, which is then processed internally. The primal reality of it all is vaster, deeper, richer. Dot, dot, dot. It is not all the way we dream it is. The mirror which stands between the windows of the senses and the wall of nescience into the inner chamber. The mirror is so very important to understand. It faces inward toward the lamp within the inner chamber, deep sleep, samadhi. But it is situated in the middle chamber, dream and waking. The mirror is the key that unlocks it all. The mirror is the key that unlocks it all. The difference between locked and unlocked is simply what you understand about what you behold reflected on the mirror's surface. Much of our suffering is generated by what we don't understand about what we see reflected there. Dot, dot, dot. In our somnambulistic state, we see only the dream processes reflected on the surface of the mirror. We can't see into the inner chamber. We can't see the lamp burning there. We see only the twisted tale woven from the mental and emotional constructs. And worse yet, we become lost in the tale. We identify with the one-dimensional reflection of this tale, and we are thus cut off from our amness. Dot, dot, dot. The point isn't to smash the mirror or ignore the mirror. The point is just to remember what it is, where it is that the mirror is placed and designed to reflect, where it is and what it is placed to and designed to reflect. Both your amness, your isness, and the twisted tale woven from our mental and emotional constructs, all of it, all of it. When we are seeing true, we see the twisted tale and we see through it to the amness simultaneously. Both are, and both are of profound significance. We begin to see the twisted state as if it were etched on transparency and laid over the pulsating midnight blue vastness that is our amness. It is not one or the other, it is both, all of it at once. We through the twisted tale to the amness, and the amness illuminates the twisted tale, transforming its very nature. Joy arises from within, peace envelops us. The amness is the lamp. This is the truth. The threshold and the door. The threshold. I'm gonna get used to this. The threshold. Yeah, there it is. The threshold and the door between the lamp and the mirror. Between the lamp and the mirror is a threshold and a door. The threshold and the door represent our innate capacity to move between dimensions, levels of vibration within our own being. It is almost too simple, too immediate to recognize. Can you dive into the space between two thoughts? Can you relax into that curve in the breath where the inhalation turns into an exhalation and the exhalation turns into an inhalation? Can you consciously feel into the effortless shift that occurs when you close your eyes and drift off into sleep? Can you ask yourself the primal question, who am I? But not be distracted by whatever mental or emotional construct offers itself up as an answer. Can you instead listen and open deeply into the silent answer that arises from all five bodies at once? The question is not a question, and the answer is not an answer. To ask who am I and allow for no lesser answer is to fall into the embrace of your own being itself. Again and again, each time you remember to ask the primal question, you will feel how the vast sea of you surges ceaselessly, and you will feel the dark soil that nourishes the roots of the great tree that you are. The door is open. Cross the threshold. Now I've abbreviated that last section of Secret Engine of the World, but I wanted to not go on too long, and I'm, at least from this end of the computer, fighting on some technical issues here, so I hope this broadcast went through. And I want to thank Ramana Maharshi and H.P. Blavatsky for being here with us this evening, and Joe and Gwen and Evans Wentz and S.S. Cohen and our fellow member Terrence and all of you who are listening this evening. Oh, and Dr. Young, I'm glad I remember Dr. Young again because, as I said, he wrote the preface to The Great Liberation. He wrote a preface to Spiritual Teachings of Ramana Maharshi, and according to his biographer, only two, according to Evans Wentz's biography, Dr. W.Y. Evans Wentz's biography, according to his biographer, only two people in the West understood what Evans Wentz was trying to communicate that he encountered. One was Joe Miller. And the other was Dr. Carl Jung. So that's part of our heritage, the lineage of non-lineage, the pathless path. It's part of our rich occult heritage in the Theosophical Society of San Francisco. Avasiti Kar Shantu, may the Vajra, the heart, be realized in this lifetime. Shaboom.